Our lecture today is about nerve physiology introduction. Objectives. First of all, we are going to describe the structure and functions of the neuron, describe the structure and functions and classifications of the nerves, describe the locations and functions of the different types of supporting cells, describe the sheath of Schwann and its functions in the regeneration of the cut peripheral nerve fiber. Nervous system consists from two parts: central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system includes the cranial nerves arising from the brain and the spinal nerves arising from the spinal cord. We have 12 pairs of cranial nerves and 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and these are their names and functions. The nerve system is composed of only two principal types of cells: neuron cells and supporting cells. Neurons are the basic structural and functional units of the nervous system in general. They are specialized to respond to physical and chemical stimuli and any type of stimuli, conduct electrochemical impulses, and release the chemical regulators. Most of the neurons cannot be divided by mitosis. Supporting cells aid or help the functions of neurons, and it is more than the neuron in lumbar, about 5 times more abundant than neuron. In the central nervous system, the supporting cells are called the neuroglia or glial cells, and they undergo a limited value of mitosis. We're going to describe the neurons. Usually it is vary in size and shape, and they are in general have two principal parts: the cell body, dendrites, and axon. This is a picture give us an idea about the neuron. First of all, we are going to describe the cell body, or ما يسمى بالبريكاريون. It is the large portion of the neuron and contain the nucleus, which represents the nutritional center, and contains the densely staining areas of rough endoplasmic reticulum. We call it nasal bodies, not found in dendrites or in axons. The cell bodies within the central nervous system, when it is clustered and forming a groups, we call it a nuclei. And the cell bodies, when it's a cluster and forming a group of cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system, we call it the ganglia. كلمة ganglia رح تتكرر علينا بكثرة، ولذلك نعني بالجانجليا إنه clusters or groups of cell bodies of the neurons that is situated in the peripheral nervous system. The dendrites, it is a thin branch processes that extended from the cytoplasm of the pericardium, and they provide receptive areas that transmit the electrical impulses to the cell. مثل المجسات. The axon is a longer process that conduct the impulses away from the cell body. Axons vary in length from only 1 millimeters to up to 1 meter or more, and the origin of the axon near the cell body is called the axonal hillock, where the nerve impulse originated. Side branches from the axon, we call it the axonal collaterals. They may extend from the axon, and the proteins and other molecules are transported through the axon at faster rate than could be achieved by simple diffusion. We have two types of transport in the axon. First of all, we have the exoplasmic flow, and the second we have the axonal transport, or also we call it the exoplasmic transport. يعني نقدر نسميه axonal transport، نقدر نسميه exoplasmic transport. Axonal flow is the slower of the two and resulted from the rhythmic waves of contractions that push the cytoplasm from the axonal hillock to the nerve conducting. يعني it is in one way from the pericardium to the peripherals, to the nerve ending. while the axonal transport it's more rapid and more selective and may undergo two directions, أما retrograde direction or orthograde direction. retrograde direction عادة يعني انتقال الرجعي يكون from the periphery to the pericardium, and the orthograde from the pericardium to the neighboring or to the nerve ending. So by retrograde transport, it is responsible to the transport of the viruses, just like the herpes virus, the rabies virus, tetanus toxoid from the nerve terminal to the pericardium. فإذا إحنا عندنا بالأكزون عندنا two types of transport. عندنا axonal flow، عندنا axonal transport أو ما يسمى exoplasmic flow أو exoplasmic transport. وفي حالة الأكزونال فلو فقط تنقلنا باتجاه واحد من البريكاريون إلى البريفري، بينما عندنا الأكزوبلازميك ترانسبورت أو أكزون ترانسبورت it is faster و undergo two directions، أما from the nerve ending to the pericardium وما سماه بالretrograde or from the pericardium to the ending سميها orthograde. ولذلك نشوف إنه يعني viruses مثل herpes virus مثل rabies virus can transmit it from the periphery to the central nervous system, to the brain. Now, the classifications of neurons, according to the functional classifications, we can divide it into three types: sensory or ما يسمى بالafferent. Afferent يعني مستقبل. Efferent neurons conduct the impulses from the sensory receptors to the central nervous system, to the brain, to the spinal cord. The motor or ما يسمى بالefferent neurons that carry the orders from the brain, from the spinal cord, from the central nervous system يعني to the effector organs, just like the muscles. والassociation neurons أو ما يسمى بالinterneurons, it is يعني type of neurons that located only in the central nervous system and serves to يعني it is associative or integrative functions to the nervous system. There are two types of motor neuron. motor neuron اللي هي الافرنت نقسمها إلى نوعين، إلى somatic and autonomic. Somatic motor neurons are responsible for both reflexes and voluntary control, just like the skeletal muscle اللي هي تعتبر العضلات الإرادية، الحركات الإرادية. بينما الأوتونوميك موتور نيورون innervate the involuntary effectors اللي هي السموث muscle, cardiac muscle, glands اللي تعتبر العمليات اللا إرادية. There are two types of the autonomic pathways اللي عندنا sympathetic وعندنا parasympathetic، إن شاء الله رح ناخذها بالتفصيل. This is the types of neuron. هذه الصور توضح لنا types of neurons اللي هي الافرنت اللي هي الموتور نيورون، والافرنت اللي هي السنسوري نيورون، والانتر نيورون. Structural classifications of the neuron is based on the number of processes that extended from the cell bodies of the neuron. We have first of all the pseudo-unipolar neurons that have a single short processes that branches to form a pair of longer process. وعندنا الbipolar neuron have two processes, one either يعني one at each end, for example الموجودة بالرتنا. والمulti polar اللي هي تعتبر the most abundant one, most common one, that have several dendrites and one axon that extended from the pericardium. for example بالموتور نيورون، غالبية الموتور نيورون وخلينا نقول هي الموتور نيورون هي تعتبر multi polar. Now, what we mean by nerve? Nerve is a bundle of axons located outside the central nervous system, outside the brain, originated from the brain نسميه cranial nerves، واللي originated from the spinal cord نسميها the spinal nerves. Most of the nerves are composed of both motor and sensory fibers, so call it mixed nerves. يعني عندنا axons تابعة للsensory cells وعندنا axons تابعة للmotor cells، والbundles of these axons نسميها nerve. Some of the cranial nerves contain only sensory fibers. For example, the nerves that serve to the spinal to the special sense. أيضا nerves ممكن نقسمها according to يعني to many types depend on many parameters. فعندنا classification of nerve fibers according to histological classification نقدر نقسمها إلى ما يسمى بالmodulated يعني myelinated، يعني وجود أو مغلفة بمايلين شيت، وهسه إن شاء الله ناخذ مايلين شيت اللي هو ناخذها إن شاء الله بالتفصيل. وعندنا non modulated اللي هي non myelinated، Functionally نقسمها إلى motor efferent اللي carry the orders from the central nervous system to the effectors، والsensory اللي هي الافرنت يعني مستقبلات اللي هي going to carry the informations from the peripheral to the central nervous system. This is a picture about the يعني the nerves. وعندنا classification according chemical classification according to the type of neurotransmitters اللي تطلع من النيرف. اما تكون نوع النيوروترانسميتر اذا كان نور ابنفرين فنسمي هذا النيرف يعني ادرينرجيك نيرف اللي هو يعني نيوروترانسميتر مالته نور ابنفرين، والكولينرجيك اللي هو النيوروترانسميتر مالته الاستالكولين. according to the diameter and the conduction of the impulses نقسمها يعني كل ما يكون النيرف with large diameter عادة conduction ما يكون أسرع. أن A fiber further divided to يعني A B and C، أو مثلا نقول A1 A2 A3 عادة يعني تتقسم إلى subdivisions. أن B fiber و C fiber also divided into CS and so on. دائما عادة يعني نلاحظ انه الثيكر فايبر اللي لارج دايمتر يكون اكثر سرعة، وهذا الدايمتر ايضا نقسمها الى subdivisions. النيوميريكال classification of sensory nerve fibers يعني نقسم مثلا 1A 1B 2 3 4 and so on. physio-anatomic ايضا نقسمها طبعا peripheral يعني كان classified to afferent and efferent، ايضا احنا قلناها ايضا اعتمادا على الفانكشن مالتها. و also يعني طبعا الافرنت اللي هي تكون somatic و اتجنا او مثلا from autonomic وهكذا. طيب الان ناخذ يعني ملخص عن محاضرتنا اليوم. وقلنا انه central nervous system include the brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system include the cranial nerves اللي هي nerves originated from the brain، والspinal nerves اللي هي originated from the cells الموجودة بالspinal cord. The neurons are the basic structural and functional unit of the nervous system. They are specialized to respond to any stimulus سواء كان physical سواء كان chemical, and responsible to produce electrical impulses and conduct these electrical impulses عن طريق يعني chemical regulators neurotransmitters. They generally have three principal يعني regions اللي هي cell bodies و dendrites والاxon. نحكي عن نيورون طبعا. most of the neurons cannot divided by the mitosis. وقلنا مو يعني most of the neuron انما خلينا نقول يعني النيورون بصورة عامة cannot undergo mitosis. Supporting cell can undergo mitosis within a limited values. It is يعني usually more in number than the neuron, and most nerves are composed of both motor and sensory fibers. We call it the mixed nerves. Now we have some questions about our lecture. وإن شاء الله تكون المحاضرة مفهومة. شكرا جزيلا.